Start talking at home. Lena stared at the English novel, comprehension flowing effortlessly. Yet, a silent dread always gripped her when asked to articulate a thought aloud. She understood every intricate detail, every nuanced phrase, but her tongue felt tied, a frustrating knot of unspoken words. This common predicament plagued countless learners worldwide, hindering their progress and confidence immensely, leaving them feeling trapped. Her biggest dream involved confidently engaging in conversations, sharing her ideas freely, without the lingering fear of mispronunciation or grammatical errors. The chasm between her excellent reading comprehension and her hesitant spoken English felt vast, almost insurmountable. She yearned for fluency, a natural flow that seemed to elude her, despite diligent study. This internal conflict was a daily struggle. Why must I read English? She often pondered, even though the answer was evident. Reading expanded her vocabulary, improved her grammar subconsciously, and immersed her in authentic language structures. It laid a robust foundation for understanding, building a vast passive knowledge base. Yet, passive understanding alone wouldn't bridge the speaking gap she so desperately needed to overcome. Her grandmother, a wise woman who learned English later in life, always advised, "Start talking at home, my dear, even if it's just to yourself." Lena initially dismissed this, feeling silly conversing with thin air. But the old woman's persistent encouragement eventually sparked a tiny flicker of determination within her hesitant heart. How to talk in English was the million-dollar question that kept her awake many nights. She knew grammar rules, possessed an impressive vocabulary, but the spontaneous act of forming sentences, connecting thoughts, and articulating them coherently proved her greatest challenge. It felt like her brain had a "speak" button that remained stubbornly unresponsive. One rainy afternoon, Lena watched a motivational speaker online. The speaker emphasized, learning a language is not just about accumulating knowledge, it's about building a new habit. This simple yet profound statement resonated deeply with Lena, offering a fresh perspective on her long-standing dilemma, shifting her entire mindset regarding language acquisition. The speaker continued, "How to learn English effectively involves integrating it into your daily routine, making it a natural part of your existence." This sparked an idea. Lena decided to dedicate small, consistent blocks of time each day, transforming her study habits from sporadic bursts to a steady, continuous effort. She began by labeling objects around her house in English. Table, chair, window. Simple, almost childish, but it forced her to acknowledge the English equivalents consciously. This physical interaction with the language made it feel more tangible, less abstract, fostering a deeper connection with everyday vocabulary she frequently encountered. Her grandmother's advice echoed, "Start talking at home." So, Lena started narrating her actions. "I am making tea. The water is boiling. I need a cup." The words felt clumsy at first, a foreign tongue struggling to articulate mundane tasks, but she persisted, pushing through the initial awkwardness. She began describing her surroundings, her thoughts, her plans for the day, all in English. This solitary practice allowed her to experiment, make mistakes without judgment, and build confidence in her own voice. It was a private arena for growth, where self-consciousness could slowly dissipate. "Why you must listen, became another critical question. Lena realized that listening was not merely passive reception but active engagement. She started consuming English podcasts, not just for entertainment, but dissecting native speakers' intonation, rhythm, and natural phrasing, absorbing their speech patterns. She listened to TED Talks, news reports, and even children's stories, focusing on understanding the nuances of spoken language. This intensive listening practice improved her ear, making it easier to distinguish sounds and anticipate sentence structures, a crucial step toward mimicking native pronunciation. The more she listened, the more patterns emerged, the more natural the flow of English sounded. It was like tuning an instrument. Her brain was slowly adjusting to the melody and harmony of the language, preparing itself to produce similar sounds and rhythms effortlessly. How to speak with people remained her ultimate hurdle. The thought of engaging in real-time conversation filled her with anxiety. What if she froze? What if she couldn't find the right words? These fears loomed large, almost paralyzing her desire to practice. Her friend, Maya, who was already quite fluent, suggested joining an online language exchange group. It's low pressure, Lena. Everyone there is learning, just like you, Maya encouraged gently. The idea still terrified Lena, but a tiny part of her recognized its necessity. Lena decided to take a small step. Instead of jumping into live conversations, she started by typing messages in English within the group. This allowed her to formulate her thoughts carefully, check grammar, and build confidence in written communication before attempting spoken interactions. This transition from reading to silent narration, then to private speaking, and finally to written communication, provided a gradual progression. Each step built upon the last, making the leap to spoken interaction feel less daunting, like climbing a staircase one step at a time. The concept of how to think and speak was revolutionary for Lena. She realized she was often translating from her native language into English, a cumbersome and slow process. This internal translation was the bottleneck preventing spontaneous speech from emerging freely. To overcome this, she forced herself to think directly in English. When she saw a dog, she immediately thought dog, not chien, her native word, then dog. This direct association bypassed the translation step, speeding up her mental processing significantly. This practice of thinking in English extended to her daily journaling. Instead of merely narrating events, she began expressing her feelings and opinions directly in English, forcing her brain to operate solely within the target language, creating new neural pathways. The way of learning English for Lena transformed from rote memorization to immersive experience. She began viewing English not just as a subject but as a living, breathing tool for communication, something to be used and experimented with daily. She surrounded herself with English, music, movies, books, even changing her phone's language settings. This constant exposure, often called immersion, pushed her comfort zone, forcing her to rely on English for understanding and interaction, accelerating her learning curve immensely. Despite her progress, Lena still found herself saying, "I understand English but I can't speak well." This persistent self-doubt was her greatest adversary, a mental barrier more formidable than any grammatical rule or vocabulary deficit, constantly undermining her confidence. Maya reminded her, "Lena, speaking is a skill, like playing an instrument. You wouldn't expect to play a concerto after just reading sheet music. You need to actually play it, make mistakes, and keep playing until it flows naturally. This analogy resonated deeply. Lena understood that speaking fluency wasn't about perfect knowledge, but about consistent, imperfect practice. The fear of making mistakes had been holding her back more than any actual language deficiency, crippling her attempts. The mantra became, "Listen and practice." She continued her intensive listening, but now coupled it with immediate attempts to replicate what she heard. She would pause a podcast, repeat a sentence, trying to match the intonation and speed. She recorded herself speaking, then listened back, cringing at first, but slowly identifying areas for improvement. This self-correction mechanism was crucial. It provided objective feedback, allowing her to refine her pronunciation and rhythm without external pressure. Lena even started talking to her dog, Buster, in English. Buster, of course, offered no judgment, only wagging his tail enthusiastically, making the practice surprisingly enjoyable and stress-free. These small, consistent steps built a foundation of speaking comfort. One day, in the online language group, someone asked a question directly to Lena. Her heart pounded, but instead of typing, she took a deep breath, clicked the microphone icon, and started speaking, slowly at first, but audibly. The words weren't perfect, there were pauses, but they flowed. The other person listened patiently. When Lena finished, they offered encouraging words, not corrections. This positive reinforcement was a revelation, boosting her confidence immensely, showing her it was possible. From that moment, Lena committed to at least one spoken interaction daily, no matter how brief. She sought out opportunities, from ordering coffee in English to participating in short online discussions, pushing herself gently beyond her comfort zone. She realized that true fluency wasn't about eliminating mistakes, but about effectively communicating despite them. The fear of error had been a cage, and by daring to speak, she was slowly unlocking its door, step by painful step. The "why you must read English" now had a deeper meaning. It wasn't just about understanding, it was about internalizing patterns, expanding her mental dictionary, and providing a vast resource pool from which her spoken words could draw effortlessly. She started reading English novels aloud, not silently in her head. This bridge between reading comprehension and spoken production forced her mouth and brain to work in tandem, solidifying vocabulary and sentence structures in her active memory, making them accessible. The "How to Talk in English" journey became about embracing imperfection. She accepted that mistakes were part of the process, signposts on the path to improvement, not indicators of failure. This mindset shift was liberating, freeing her from self-imposed pressure. Her confidence grew with each conversation, each successful interaction. She found joy in expressing herself, even if she had to rephrase a sentence or search for a word. The act of communicating trumped the pursuit of flawless speech. The concept of "how to learn English" evolved into a holistic approach, integrating all skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. She understood that each element reinforced the others, creating a virtuous cycle of continuous linguistic development. She made flashcards for common phrases, not just individual words, focusing on chunks of language that native speakers used naturally. This helped her to speak more idiomatically, sounding less like a textbook and more like a real person. Why you must listen became more profound. Active listening wasn't just for comprehension but for mimicking. She found herself subconsciously adopting speech patterns, intonations, and even common expressions from the native speakers she admired, enriching her own spoken English. She would shadow speakers, repeating sentences simultaneously with them, trying to match their rhythm and emphasis. This technique, though challenging, rapidly improved her pronunciation and gave her a sense of the flow and musicality of English. How to speak with people transformed from a source of dread to an exciting challenge. Every conversation was an opportunity, a chance to test her growing skills and connect with others. Her social anxiety around English speaking gradually diminished. She joined an English book club, forcing her to discuss literature in English. This high-level interaction pushed her vocabulary and argumentative skills, moving her beyond basic conversational topics into more complex and abstract discussions. The method of how to think and speak was now second nature. Her internal monologue switched primarily to English, and she found herself naturally formulating thoughts in the language she intended to speak, eliminating the translation lag. She even started dreaming in English, a clear sign of deep linguistic immersion. These dreams, though sometimes bizarre, solidified her subconscious connection to the language, making it feel truly integrated into her very being. The way of learning English for Lena became a lifelong journey of discovery. There was always more to learn, new nuances to grasp, but the initial fear had been replaced by genuine curiosity and a profound love for the language. She understood that English fluency wasn't a destination but an ongoing process, a continuous refinement. This realization removed the pressure of achieving perfection, allowing her to enjoy the learning journey itself, celebrating small victories along the way. The phrase, "I understand English but I can't speak well," became a distant memory. Lena still made mistakes, but they no longer crippled her. They were simply part of the beautiful, messy process of human communication, embraced rather than feared. Her newfound confidence spilled into other areas of her life. She was more assertive, more willing to take risks, knowing that growth often lies just beyond the edges of discomfort, where true learning happens organically. Listen and practice wasn't just a strategy, it was her daily ritual. She found new podcasts, new channels, always seeking fresh input and new opportunities to apply her skills, transforming passive intake into active production seamlessly. Lena even started helping others in the language exchange group, sharing her journey and tips. She became a testament to the power of consistent effort and a change in mindset, inspiring many with her remarkable transformation and progress. Her English speaking improved dramatically, not overnight, but through steady, incremental progress. Each tiny step, each hesitant word, each courageous conversation added up to a significant leap in her communicative abilities, building momentum. She could now articulate complex ideas, engage in debates, and even crack jokes in English, something she once thought impossible. The words flowed more freely, less inhibited by self-doubt or the fear of grammatical missteps, feeling natural. The initial frustration of understanding without speaking had given way to the joy of confident expression. Lena wasn't just learning a language, she was discovering a new voice, a powerful tool for connection and self-actualization globally. Her journey proved that fluency wasn't reserved for those who started young or lived abroad. It was attainable through dedication, a willingness to be vulnerable, and a strategic application of proven learning methods consistently over time. Lena finally understood that speaking English was not about perfection, but about participation. Every uttered word, every attempted conversation, no matter how flawed, moved her closer to her goal, transforming her understanding into confident, clear communication.